My name is Chris Mooney. I'm a science and political journalist, a book author, and pundit about science, communication, and media, and why people deny and reject science.
Cool. Let's start with a really easy question. In a fist fight between you and PZ Myers, who wins?
Me.
Really? See, the consensus is that you would accommodate his fist as it confronted your face.
I think we would have a very civil discussion.
Yeah. I think you got the age and fitness factor going for you, to be honest. From what I hear, you're a big soccer buff, right?
I used to be. I have not actually been able to play soccer in some time, unfortunately. I certainly love to watch it.
I was thinking, though, as it pertains to framing issues of science, which is largely your thing, how to frame issues of science for the public, wouldn't it benefit you to denounce soccer once and for all and pick up a true American sport, like football?
Played football, too. I got nothing against it. You know, I played football with Peyton Manning in high school, actually. I
Really?
was a running back. I caught some passes from the games. I used to be bigger.
You used to be bigger, or did everyone else grow?
No, we were pretty much full grown.
Yeah, you used to be bigger. Okay.
I used to be bigger like this.
Oh,
I
right.
used to be a little bit more of a meathead.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. It's a fun fact. Okay, well, I just attended your talk at the University of Buffalo about your newest book, Unscientific American, right? America, excuse me.
Sure.
And a large part of the discussion had to deal with, again, this issue of framing, how scientists can bridge the gap between their technical jargon expertise and what the general public understands. I wanted to ask this during the talk, but I also wanted to get it on tape. So, one huge thing I thought that was missing from this talk was the idea of, the millions and millions and, reaching billions of dollars that go into the denial industry. George C. Marshall Institute, Exxon's Heartland, American Enterprise, etc. So how can underfunded kind of, just everyday scientists compete at a level with these people in terms of communicating with the public?
If your question is just about dollars, then I do think that there is a lot of financial support from some corporations and some conservative individuals' interests behind global warming denial. It's been called the denial machine. I think it exists. Dollar for dollar, I don't think it's as big as all the institutions of higher learning in the country. I mean, it's not that big. Scientists actually could probably devote similar resources. I'm not sure if that's the best strategy, because I think honestly, you're not so much rebutting them as you're trying to reach the public that is uninformed, misinformed in general, and that's really why you want to be aiming your communication activities. But scientists are not without resources. I agree that they're not nearly as strategic, nor are they as political as some of the people who end up being their opponents in these kinds of issues. But scientists have not maxed out their potential in any way either.
Okay. But just getting back to this idea of like money in politics and how it shapes policy in terms of climate change especially, how can we expect anything fruitful or wise to come out of our legislators when it's nothing but, Exxon and BP kind of floating their campaigns?
Well, there is a lot of money in politics. I actually don't think, well, first of all, Exxon and BP aren't on the same side of climate issue, but I don't think it's just money. I think that on this topic, if we're talking about climate change, I think more of the resistance is actually driven by ideology. I think that it is a hot button issue for libertarians, basically for free market people who don't want the government interfering. And actually what we've seen is that corporate America has moved. If you take a company like Duke Energy or Royal Dutch Shell or what have you, I mean, there was a time when all of the fossil fuel industry was allied behind the position that global warming is an real and we don't need to do anything about it. That's all changed. And yet the resistance has gotten only stronger, and that's because I think the resistance is as much or more ideological as it is just special interest driven. And ideological in the sense, this is the same impulse that makes people want to say, keep your hands off my guns, I should have the right to have a gun. It's keep your hands off my economy, I should not be regulated.
How do you think this idea of whether it's climate change or kind of hyper religiosity, how do these two things intersect in your mind?
Well, basically, the United States is politically polarized, and the Republican Party is comprised of different threads. It is comprised of both a sort of libertarian ideological free market thread, and it is comprised of, and other threads too, but it's comprised of a religious conservative thread. And in my first book, Republican War on Science, I talked about how both of those groups were leading attacks on science, so that it became a kind of double whammy. And they are on the same team. They have things in common, they have things not in common. Since I first wrote that book, I've actually learned an interesting way of kind of describing this. There's it comes out of anthropology. There's this idea that human beings have different cultural values, and some of the values are individualism, hierarchy or hierarchicalism. It's probably not a word. Egalitarianism and communitarianism. And if you look at the Republican Party and you look at these issues, then you find that the individualists are the ones that don't believe in global warming, and they don't want government regulation of the economy. The hierarchs are the ones that are religious and respect authority and want society to be structured, and it's because of their devotion to religious belief that they then have, and fundamentalist religious belief in a lot of cases, that then have a set of different issues with science. The Republican Party has got both of the groups, the hierarchs and the individualists, tied together. And the Democrats have the other two groups.
Right, but generally this idea of framing, it strikes some people, in the kind of confrontationalist dogma as sort of a pandering. You get that a lot, or?
Sure, there's a sense. I think it's strange, but there's a sense that somehow, if you say, let's be strategic about this, or if you even say, let's proceed on what we know about how humans learn, how they perceive threatening information, somehow that's seen as weak. I don't buy it. I think it's well informed, but I get that.
What about threats of physical violence or torture to make people see the light?
Likely to backfire.
Backfire?
Not going to work.
Could be bad information, bad intel.
Not the strategy I would propose.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris Mooney.